Hi, welcome to Chelsea Grows. I'm Chelsea. If you're new here, I'm on a mission to grow as many food and flower crops as I possibly can here in the Pacific Northwest in Zone 8B. This is the year you start growing your food and your flowers regardless of how much space you have. I have a standard 40 square foot balcony. I grow in about 20 square feet of it. So if I can grow in 20 square feet, you can too. I'm going to show you how to start your balcony garden in 3 simple steps, plus a bonus 4th step that I'll be doing this year that'll save us from constantly having to water in the middle of summer, so be sure to stick around for that bonus step. Just to prove to you guys that I know a little bit about balcony gardening, I was featured in my local newspaper for my balcony garden. My local newspaper saw that I had a balcony garden. It was thriving. They were like, girl, we're gonna put you in the newspaper. And I said, okay. And if I could ask you a favor, more than 60% of you who watch my videos aren't subscribed yet. So if you could please subscribe to the channel, that would mean so much to me. It helps the channel, and it makes it so more people learn how to grow in small spaces. Grab your notebook, grab your pen, grab your tea. We're gonna learn how to start your first balcony garden. Let's go. To make it really easy, all of these steps start with the letter P. I don't know about you, but when things are like phonetically the same, like everything starts with a P, it makes it easier for me to remember. So step 1 is plan. Before you buy anything, you need to make a plan. Ask yourself these questions. Where will your garden be? I'm assuming on your balcony or on your patio. How much of the balcony or patio are you willing to grow in? Where on that balcony or patio will you be putting your containers? How much sunlight does your space get? I downloaded a free compass app on my phone, and I used the compass and it let me know that my balcony is south facing, but I also just kind of visually could see how much sun and heat my balcony was getting throughout the year. So I think it is important to actually understand which way your balcony is facing, because if it's facing south and you live in the northern hemisphere, you'll get the most sun. But if you're visually observing your balcony and from 10 a.m. till 7 p.m. in the summer, you get full sun, that probably tells you you are in a south-facing balcony. I also posted a video a couple of weeks ago titled "What I Wish I Knew Before I Started My Balcony Garden." I'll put it up here and in the description. Definitely watch that video after this video, because I go into way more detail about setup. This is kind of your first step, is like planning and the setup. What containers are you going to grow in? So I grow in 2 types of containers. I grow in grow bags, 5-gallon grow bags specifically, because I find that grow bags are the most accessible, affordable way to start growing. You can get a 5-pack on Amazon for like 20 bucks. I did that a few seasons ago and my grow bags are still doing amazingly. I also read this book, Grow Bag Gardening by Kevin Espiritu. He is the owner of Epic Gardening and Botanical Interest. If you've looked into gardening videos, I'm sure you've seen him and his team. Before I started growing in grow bags, I read this book. I highly suggest it. I'll put it in the description. I'm sure you can get this at your local library for free. If you're growing in grow bags, I highly recommend this, because I read this and I was like, okay, I get it now. I just read it once and I just was like, cool, I understand how to grow in grow bags. The other container that I like growing in is a green stalk vertical planter. If you're watching this video now at the end of April, beginning of May, Green Stalk is having a huge sale. So I highly recommend going to their website and checking them out, because green stalk planters are vertical planters where you can get 3 tiers, 5 tiers, 7 tiers. It's just a garden that you only need 2 square feet in. My planter is 6 tiers, but I've actually separated them into 4 tiers and 2 tiers. I'll show you guys videos of it. So I basically have like 2 separate gardens, but I just bought 1 planter. It has 6 pockets per tier. So that's 36 pockets, and I plant multiple plants in each pocket. I highly recommend looking into that, especially if you have a small space, because when I was researching containers, I was like, I want to plant a lot of things. I don't want to just plant a few containers and be like, cool, that's good. I was like, I want to plant more than like 50 plants. And a green stalk vertical planter is like the perfect addition to my garden. I get comments all the time about people being like, what is that? It's a green stalk vertical planter. You can use the code CHELSGROWS if you want to save even more money on a green stalk. It's just like the best thing ever. Of course, you can plant in any container you have on hand. If you just have like plastic pots, if you have terracotta pots, the main thing is it just needs drainage on the bottom, okay? So just start with what you have. The next thing you need to consider is what growing media will you be using for your containers. You will be using potting mix, okay? Don't make the mistake I made. In my first season, I used raised bed mix in containers. Nothing grew. And it's because raised bed mix is very dense. It has sand in it, it has manure in it. It's just very it's not very malleable. I don't even think I'm saying that right. But with potting mix, I'll show you guys a clip. Potting mix should be fluffy and light and airy, and it should feel really nice in your hands, and it should go through your hands very easily. I'll show you guys a clip of what I'm talking about. So you can either make your potting mix. I make my potting mix. I'll share my recipe in the next step that we'll talk about, or you can buy it. There's tons of brands out there who make potting mixes. I like Fox Farm. It is expensive though, but I find that the quality of Fox Farm is really good. The potting mix I've used in my garden is Fox Farm Happy Frog, or my own potting mix, which I will let you guys know the recipe in the next step. You need to figure out what is your growing media for your containers. And then you need to figure out what plants you actually want to grow this season. You need to understand your seasons. I am very good at knowing my seasons here in the Pacific Northwest. I even posted a YouTube about how I learned how to grow in this climate because I have such a unique climate. You will need to understand your growing seasons and your growing climate. If you're watching this now in April, my best advice if you wanted to get spring harvest, so like cool weather crops of lettuces and of like brassicas like kale and of like cilantro and parsley, I would suggest you direct seed that in your garden. Just read the back of the seed packet of the instructions of like the seed depth where it needs to be, and you should be good. Things should germinate pretty well on your balcony right now, or you can go to your local nursery and buy your plant starts. Or if you're planning on a summer garden, I highly recommend looking into seeds and starting your own seeds for your summer garden. So I just started my tomatoes and peppers, marigolds. I'm about to start my cosmos. I might not start my zinnias, but definitely my cosmos. If you want to save money and start seeds, think about your summer garden. And yes, you can plant a spring garden, but I would suggest to direct sow those seeds or buy those plant starts, okay? But again, your climate will be different to my climate if you're not in the Pacific Northwest. So you need to be aware of those seasons. And I go into like timing of planting your garden more in depth in that other video that I made. So again, check it out after this video. And if you already have an existing garden, you need to take stock and you need to take inventory of what's growing in your garden. So this was the first season. I actually had to go out in my garden and take inventory of all the perennials that I had growing. I have rosemary, sage, lavender, yarrow, oregano, lemon balm, thyme, chives, and then I have native plants out there too. So inside out flower, foam flower, a French cup, early blue violets, and a Henderson's checker mellow. In total, I had to write all this out. I have 35 perennials already in my garden. So if you already have an established garden, take stock of what you have, because that will decipher how much room you have to even plant out with, if that makes sense. And I would highly suggest getting any type of notebook. I have multiple notebooks, but just start brainstorming what you want. This past December 28th, I wrote veggie wish list, Chels grows. And I just wrote like my greens that I want to grow, my root crops, my herbs, my nightshades, so like tomatoes and peppers, my beans. That was months ago, guys. This was just me brainstorming. I took inventory of what's already out on my balcony, and I drew a drawing of my balcony. So I did like a compass, south, north, west, and east. This is the front of my balcony. These are my 8 grow bags, and then these are my green stalk tiers. I highly suggest you just map it out, just brain dump everything that you want on paper. Get it out of your brain and onto paper, because it'll make more sense once it's on paper. And then when you're brainstorming it out on paper, it doesn't need to be perfect, okay? My drawing of my garden isn't done. Like, I didn't finish it. It's okay. Step 2 is prep. It starts with a P. Remember, step 1, plan. Step 2, prep. So if you're starting from scratch, you don't already have an established garden, this is going to be so easy for you. All you're going to do is get your containers and get your setup out on your balcony, and then fill your containers with the potting mix of your choice. You either bought it or you made it. And then you're going to add slow release granular fertilizer to your containers. Now, I know a lot of people aren't like the biggest fan of fertilizers, but here's the thing, when you're growing in containers, the only food that soil and the plants are getting will be coming from you yourself. I personally think to have like a successful, flourishing, abundant balcony garden, I learned this last year, I fertilize at the beginning of every season with slow release fertilizer. I love this brand, Down to Earth. Down to Earth, they are organic and they're OMRI listed. It's just fish bone, blood meal, feather meal, alfalfa meal, seaweed, and rock phosphate. Like that, there's no synthetic fertilizers in this. This week I used the all-purpose fertilizer, which I've never used before. I also used the 444 vegetable garden fertilizer last year. If you're starting from scratch, this prep step is so easy. Just fill up your containers with potting mix. Then you amend that potting mix with some slow release granular fertilizer, and all the directions on how to apply that are on the box, and I'll put these fertilizers in my Amazon storefront so you guys can get them. And then that's it. If you are just setting up a new garden, that is the prep stage. Very easy. However, if you're like me and you have an established garden, the prep stage, in my opinion, is the most cumbersome to me. But it's probably my own fault. I didn't clean up my fall garden in the winter. I kind of just let my fall garden go in the winter, which was kind of cool because I got a lot of harvest. It was a very mild winter here in the Pacific Northwest, so I was still getting kales, lettuces, herbs, parsley, chives. I was even getting snap peas in the middle of January and February. And then it hits now in April and I'm like, shoot, I didn't clean out my fall garden from last season. What I had to do was I spent only about like 20 minutes cleaning out my garden. So what I was doing is you got to get the root balls out of those containers. The reason is just think of it like this. You need to get the old out to make room for the new. People who grow in-ground garden beds or even raised beds, some of them will probably just leave a lot of the root balls in the soil. The reason why is because they have access to like actual land where there's earthworms, tons of bugs and different types of living organisms that will decompose those roots really quickly, and those roots will actually feed the soil. In containers, it's different. We don't have like access to like earthworms. Our containers, when there's too many roots in our containers, the term is called root bound, where there's so many roots in the containers, the soil is basically gone. It's just roots, and you don't want that to happen. So what I had to do is went into my garden, cleaned it out, took out my old annuals, left my perennials, and just started taking out root balls. That's like part A in this prep step, if you already have an established garden. The second part in this prep stage, if you already have an established garden, is to refresh your soil. So amending your soil. So you can do this a couple ways. I've seen a lot of gardeners completely dump out their containers and amend all their soil at once. If you're like me, we don't have a lot of space. So I like amending my soil already in the container. And I'll show you guys videos of how I do it, but it's pretty simple. I just take a hand trowel and I go into the container and I break it apart. I'm breaking all of that dry soil, mixing those dead roots in and just kind of mixing it all up, making it loose for the growing season. I'll take off like the top 4 to 6 inches of that soil. And what I'll do is I'll put that old soil into a container and I'll set it aside and I'll amend that later. We're not even thinking about that old soil right now, okay? What you want right next to you is fresh potting mix. Either you bought it or you made it, remember? I make my potting mix. I'll put a screen grab of my potting mix recipe as well, but it's very simple. It's 3 parts coco coir, 2 parts mushroom compost, 1 part worm castings, half a part to 1 part perlite, half a part to 1 part vermiculite, and about 4 to 5 tablespoons of mycorrhizal inoculant. All of those products will be down in the description. I find that that potting mix recipe for me works very well. I used it last year. My garden did amazing. I'm gonna continue to use it. But of course, like I said, if you wanna do it the simple way, just buy your potting mix. So what we do is we take off 5 inches, we set that soil aside to amend at a later date. And if you guys are interested in learning like how I amend old potting mix, it's pretty simple, and Kevin Espiritu teaches you how to do it in this book. but it's basically how I do it for my garden. So in the containers, I have old potting mix, and what I do is I just put new potting mix on top. I layer about 5 inches of the new stuff on all of my containers. I even take apart my green stalk, do it for each layer. Because I think of it this way, if I'm setting up my containers for this full growing season, I want to do it right. To me, I'm doing it the lazy way. I think doing it the hard way is like emptying out all the containers, but I just don't have the room for that, okay? I know this seems like a lot of work, especially once you have an established garden. If you're doing this every season, like spring, summer, and fall, I usually do it spring, summer, and fall. So this might seem like a lot of effort for you, but to me, it just becomes a habit, and it's just a part of my garden life and my garden lifestyle and my garden life cycle. And once your containers are topped off with fresh potting mix, that's when you go in with your slow release organic fertilizer. This is not sponsored, by the way. I just really like this fertilizer because it has no synthetic anything in it. And the reason why I like slow release is because this will be feeding our soil and our plants throughout the whole spring. We'll top our containers off when we plant it for summer, okay? This routine of planting, prepping, and then the next step, which we'll get into next, once you do it a couple times, it's not even complicated, okay? It might sound complicated. Once you get a couple reps in, you're like, oh, this is fine. We put the fertilizer in our containers, rake it into the first couple inches, and then we can go to our last step, which is plant. So the first step was plan, second step was prep, last step is plant. So this is the fun part, at least to me. This is where all your dreams and all of your designs and everything will come to fruition. So if you are an A+ student and you drew out your garden and you assigned spots for all of your plants, this will be very easy for you. If you're like me and you assigned some of your plants, but then you got kind of lazy, or you were just like, I'll figure it out when I get out there, you can do it that way too. I like going out there. I already have my perennials set in place. That's done. What I like to do is I like to plant out by crop, because I like planting in like a polyculture where there's like herbs and greens and a perennial. So what I found the easiest on planting out days is planting out by crop and completely finishing a seed tray, completely planting this out and having it done. So these are Napa cabbages. So if I plant out all of these Napa cabbages, I know that my Napa cabbages are done. These are Swiss chards. Once I'm done planting out a whole seed burrito of my Swiss chards, I know that they're done. I find that planting out crop by crop is the easiest for me to keep track of what's going on. I've definitely tried to plant container by container, but since I like growing multiple different crops in containers, I found that just it got really confusing and I would get really overwhelmed. And I think it's because I have to plant and I have to garden in such a small space, so I don't have the luxury of just like putting this there and putting this there. On planting days and prepping days, I have to be very meticulous and have my little areas, like this is where the potting mix is, this is where the seedlings are, this is where the old potting mix will go. Planting out by crop, one by one, is easier than just planting container by container. Unless all of your containers just have one crop in it, then that's even easier. I like diversity in all my containers, so I like planting different things. I kind of plan my garden, but since I've grown in this garden for the past few years, I know what does well where. And the cool thing about plants is you can always move them, okay? Remember that. If you plant something somewhere today and in a month you see, oh, that's not doing well, or that's dying, or that could use more light, you can always dig it up and move it, okay? Remember, your garden is your garden. You can move things, you can add things, you can take away things. Something I learned about the garden is it's never stagnant. It's always moving. Things are always happening in the garden, and that is okay. So if you did like a perfect plan, but the perfect plan isn't going to plan and things are dying or things aren't getting enough sun, don't even worry about it. You can take it out of the garden, put something else there, you can move it. Everything's gonna be okay, okay? So those are the 3 main steps, okay? Plan, prep, plants. And the 4th bonus step is something I'm implementing this year, and it's protect. I have never protected my soil. I've watched hundreds of gardening videos, read dozens of gardening books, and they always tell me protect your soil with mulch. A lot of you guys might be like, what is mulch? Mulch, from what I understand, is something to protect your soil. What I use this season is the Epic Gardening Organic Garden Straw Mulch. Saw that it was on their website. I was already ordering seeds on there, so I was like, I might as well get this. It had really good reviews of people saying that it did extremely well in the garden and there weren't any weed seeds in it. Something that happens with straw and with hay, as if you buy straw and hay from like a farm or something, there's potential that there's weed seeds in that straw or in that hay. But I read the reviews on Epic Gardening's website and said it was great and there was no weed seed. So I was like, I'm buying this. If you have a yard with trees, you could also use leaves. You could also use grass clippings, but basically it's just to protect your soil, because when you protect your soil, it holds in moisture and it holds in nutrients. What I found last year is with my unprotected soil is I was watering in July and August most days, and I don't want to be doing that this season, you guys. I'm gonna be farming on 2 different farms. I have the balcony garden. I don't have time, I don't think, this summer to baby my balcony garden, and that's okay. So that's why I'm protecting it with a layer of organic straw mulch. Like I said, got it from Epic Gardening's website. I'll put it down in the description, and if you use my code CHELSEGROWS, you can get a discount. So let's recap the steps again. Step 1, say it with me, plan. Step 2, say it with me, prep. Step 3, say it with me, plant, the fun one. And the bonus step 4 is protect. Plan, prep, plant, protect. I just want to like chant that out from the rooftops, because once I like did this a couple times, I was like, oh, this isn't complicated. It seems complicated when you first do it because you've never done it before. But once you do it 2, 3, 4 times, you're like, oh, this is just a part of my life. This is just a part of my garden's life cycle. This is a part of my lifestyle. It becomes easier every time you do it. Gardening gets easier every year you do it. I promise you. This is my 3rd season, and this is my 1st season where I kind of feel like I kind of know what I'm doing, you know? So this is your reminder. You don't need a yard to start your garden. You don't need acreage to grow food or flowers. All you need is some containers, some potting mix, some seeds, and your hands to start, okay? If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. If you have any requests for videos like my potting mix recipe, if you just want more videos of me just actually out in my balcony garden, let me know. If you're already growing a garden, let me know how it's going in the comments. I honestly feel a little bit behind. I planted out my garden this week. It is mid-April, coming up to the end of April. Last year, I planted out my garden like at the end of March. You know, I don't think I'm late. It'll be all right. So if you learned something new in this video, please like and subscribe to the channel Chels Grows. I will see you soon. Love you, mean it. Bye.